Joe Russo, one half of Joe and Anthony Russo, also known as the Russo brothers, who, of course, directed Avengers Infinity War, Avengers Endgame, Winter Soldier, Civil War, stuff like that. He got on TikTok the other day, took a little jab there at old Martin Scorsese. Now, look, before we get into it, let me profess and come clean here. I know Joe and Anthony Russo a bit. I've had the privilege of having them come into my studio on a number of occasions. You can check this out here. They've come in a number of times and come in and done stuff with us. They also sent in video messages for us on my other shows and things like that. I really like these guys a lot. I like them tremendously. Now, you guys who watch my show also know that I've been more than a little, I'm not going to say critical, but critiquey. I've been a little critiquey of all the stuff that they've put out since their days at Marvel. I don't think they've knocked one out of the park since leaving Marvel, but I still think they're terrific guys. So there you go. So for those of you who might have missed it, Martin Scorsese, the great Martin Scorsese, had a little fun TikTok video go out that was made by his daughter, either his daughter or his granddaughter, one of the two. And Martin Scorsese said something cute along the lines of, I'm going to direct the dog. And he brought over his dog, and his dog's name literally is Oscar for the Oscar-winning director. So why not? So Joe Russo then made a follow-up TikTok to that and said, oh, I love dogs, basically. But then said the name of his dog. It's said better by the folks over at Variety, who said the following. Avengers filmmaker Joe Russo has caused quite a stir on social media for posting a response to recent TikTok featuring Martin Scorsese. The Oscar winner's daughter, there it is, daughter, not granddaughter, Francesca posted a TikTok this month in which Scorsese playfully directs his dog, Oscar. Russo responded by posting a video in which he tells Scorsese that they share the same muse, that they both love dogs. The camera pans out to reveal Russo is holding his own dog, whom he jokingly calls Box Office. Russo's video is clearly trying to be playful, but it has rubbed many in the film writers and industry professionals the wrong way. Now that comes to us from Variety. And, here's the thing. You know what? I already totally forgot. We're not going to do it now. This was supposed to be a Mint Mobile hotline question. I totally forgot to go to the Mint Mobile hotline question, but I've already given all the background. So there you go. Before I tell you what I think about Joe Russo's little joke, it is impossible to talk about this without remembering the context that Martin Scorsese, who I adore and I love, Mount Rushmore of directors, whole bit, can't possibly give him more respect than I have in me, right? Martin Scorsese has talked mad shit about not just Joe Russo's films, but the entire genre that Joe Russo has been in. He's called his films not really cinema, no emotional weight. He's literally talked about Joe Russo's films as being a threat to the film industry. I mean, make no mistake about it. I don't care what side of this you're on. Martin Scorsese has talked a lot of shit about Joe Russo's movies. He's never said Joe Russo by name. True enough. But he's literally talked about how we have to fight back against those kinds of films. Not only insulting the people who make those films, but also insulting the people who enjoy those films. And whatever. It's Martin. He's one of the all-time greats. We let it go. So Joe Russo, his only responses to those have ever been, I love Martin Scorsese's films. That's been his and Anthony's only responses in the last couple of years. It's like, hey, we don't like hearing that, but Martin's one of our all-time icons. He's been one of our major influences. We love Martin Scorsese, blah, blah, blah. So Martin makes a little video with his dog that he named Oscar, which I think is fun. And Joe Russo literally makes a little joke. Says, I named mine Box Office. Was that a little jab? Absolutely it was. No doubt, of course. Yes, it was. It was a little jab.
But it's Scorsese from Queens. He should be able to take jabs.
He should, yeah.
Yes.
Come on, New York tough guy. And by the way, Martin Scorsese hasn't said a thing about this because he is a New York tough guy.
Because he doesn't care.
Because he doesn't care, because he's bigger than that. So Joe Russo took a little bit of a jab. Number one, it was clearly a joke. Variety said it best. With the part what he says, the video was clearly trying to be playful. I mean, it was a joke. Not only was it a joke, it was a harmless joke. It was totally harmless. And listen, if you want to measure out who dealt it out the worst, it was Scorsese. Scorsese started it. Scorsese, you know what this is akin to? Guy walking up behind you and smacking your mother in the face and you going, you jerk. And then people going, how can you call him a jerk? He totally ignored what he did, right? And I've seen some of the responses, some absolute pansies.
Oh, just
online.
Like, they'll never remember this guy in 50 years.
Yeah, like some bullshit. Like somebody, I think at Warner Brothers, somebody at Warner Brothers, like over that little joke, here's my dog, box office, right? Over that little joke. Some loser at Warner Brothers, you know, got his knickers all stuffed up his pucker hole, said, well, I don't think we're going to be talking about Joe Russo films in 20 years. Really? Because when I look up at the top of the all-time box office films, I see a few Joe Russo films up there near the top. Just saying. Is Joe Russo anywhere near the director that Martin Scorsese is? Of course fucking not. He's not. But anyway, he's like, oh, we're not going to be talking about Joe Russo films in 20 years, but we'll talk about Martin Scorsese. Some others going, like some fucking butt whatever film festival representative going, you know, what's his name? Joe Russo is just a talentless hack. He's an asshole, blah, blah, blah. Over a little joke of holding up his dog and saying, this is box office. When compared to the mad shit that Martin Scorsese did, and we all talked about that ad nauseum, and it's all in the past, whatever. But that little joke, that's what got you upset? Fuck you. Anyway, guys, we want to take a second to thank a sponsor of today's video, Marine Lair. It's official, guys. I have found the softest t-shirt of all time, so soft, it's ridiculous. All thanks to the San Francisco-based Marine Lair. Marine Lair is the go-to brand for great fitting and stylish closet staples. Their clothes are that perfect mix of laid-back style and also looks and feels premium. It's time to invest in a wardrobe that will actually last. For a limited time, the John Campea Show viewers and listeners get an exclusive 15% off with the code Campea15 at marinelair.com. Now, guys, you know I am not the most fashionable guy in the world, but I appreciate a good looking shirt, but more importantly, I appreciate a comfortable shirt. And the shirts that I've got from Marine Lair fit both of those beautifully. And they've even got sizes like Marge, which is in between medium and large, so everyone can get their perfect fit. The best part, if you buy any 3 tees from Marine Lair, you automatically get 20% off. And Marine Lair goes way beyond just t-shirts too. They've got super laid back overshirts, pants, jackets, and all the cozy layers you want for the cooler seasons. I think we can all admit that the perfect tee can be hard to find. Look no further than Marine Lair. For a limited time, get 15% off with the code Campea15 at marinelair.com. That's Campea15 for 15% off your entire order at marinelair.com. Saving your closet one shirt at a time. That's kind of, by the way, Rob, I don't ever think directors should take shots at other directors. I don't think Joe Russo should have made the video, but he did. It was, in my opinion, he did. It was harmless. He shouldn't have done it. I don't like when any directors ever take shots at other directors. I think you leave that for other people to do. I don't like when actors take shots at other actors. I just don't think there's a need for that. But you saw this. You and I haven't talked about it. We started talking about it when we went, whoa, no, let's wait till the show starts. What do you think about that?
Well, first of all, I think there is a tradition in Hollywood of directors being playful about the idea of box office. And we going all the way back to Jaws being the #1 movie. Then when Star Wars beat Jaws, there were variety ads, trade ads taken. And then when Titanic beat E.T., you know, then James Cameron took out an ad. So there is...
And to follow that up, by the way, when Endgame passed Avatar... James Cameron put this great piece of art together honoring Endgame and put out thing. And then when Avatar retook the #1 spot, the Russos did the same thing. They put out this thing honoring Avatar.
Yeah, I mean, look, and I think that our civilization has become so thin-skinned and so humorless that I think that on TikTok, first of all, it's on TikTok. It was a funny joke. And I don't think it's taking a shot. No one, I'm sure Martin Scorsese is revered by Joe Russo, and he's doing something that was fun and playful. But on the other hand, I do want to mention that, Martin Scorsese wasn't targeting his film specifically. He was talking about a genre. The superhero genre has dominated studio filmmaking. And as we've seen, especially in the case of Warner Brothers in DC, as we've talked about on this show, hasn't done well for DC. Hasn't done well for Warner Brothers. And, the diversification of the kinds of movies we saw it this summer, Barbie and Oppenheimer, prove that there is still a hunger out there for we talked about Barbie being a new IP, but still, Barbie, I watched it the other night. I showed an 87-year-old doctor, Barbie, and not his thing. He was like, that was a very interesting film. And I was like, there is a hunger for people to get new and interesting ideas, whether they're IP-based or whether they're original, and Barbie and Oppenheimer proved that. And I think that Joe and Anthony Russo, look, I think that Infinity War and Endgame are two of the greatest, not just superhero movies, but fantasy films, science fiction films ever made. And I think that, I bet if Martin Scorsese sat down and watched both of those movies, even without context, he'd probably agree. Like, this is amazing that you've created this much emotion throughout this whole, no, Mr. Stark, I bet Spider-Man would make Martin Scorsese cry. I have no reason, I can't prove that, but I think people need to lighten up in the sense that when you've got two people that are secure in their careers, and I hope Martin Scorsese comes back and goes, well, without your superhero movies, your output leaves something to be desired. No, I don't think he would do that, and that's not fair.
And
either.
I don't think you'd necessarily be wrong.
Right, well, I know, right? But no, I think we just, what happened to the playfulness in our civilization? Can't you take a shot at somebody and be, take your lumps?
Also, what if his dog is named Box Office? Then this whole thing is just
for nothing.
Who says his dog's not named Box Office? I think it's a great name. I actually like B.O.
And if it's not, he soon will have a dog named Box
Very
Office.
well. But it brings me back to the thing, because I was reading one of the articles. I think it was the one in Deadline that recalled some of the words Martin Scorsese said. That there's no emotional truth in these films, right? But to your point, because you just made me think of this, like, I've been in the theater for a lot of Martin Scorsese films. I was a little bit too young to be in theaters to see some of his early, like, I didn't see Taxi Driver in theater when it first came out, stuff like that. But I will say this: I have never heard an entire movie theater audibly weep and wail, like not cheer, weep and cry in any Martin Scorsese film I've been in theater. And granted, I haven't been at all of them because some of them were a little bit before I was going to the movies. But like, when you get into something like Infinity War and you get Tom Holland going, I don't want to go, Mr. Stark, like all that kind of stuff.
When he turned into a Southern Belle.
That's basically.
I declare.
I declare.
Mr. Starks.
It's like molasses in your mouth. If anybody knows that reference, I'd be very impressed. But it's like, that, or T'Challa disappearing. Like, I heard people in the, like, not just everybody weeping and sobbing. Like, I heard women wailing, like when T'Challa started to disappear. Like,
The lamentations of the women.
Like movies, right, we talk about this all the
Coming
time.
out in 4K.
Movies are experiential events. And Martin Scorsese is a master at delivering one kind of an emotional experience. But there are many other movies, whether it's, Annie Hall, or whether it's 40-Year-Old Virgin, or whether it's Avengers Infinity War. There are many other types of emotional experiences that different films tend to give to us, and one is not better than the other. It's all about having an emotional experience, and their films delivered that.
And John, I think another, to your point, I'm always talking about how pop culture has like a 20-year half-life. We didn't have the technology 30 years ago to make superhero films the way we do now. Advances in digital technology has allowed filmmakers to bring visions to the screen of these characters that frankly were impossible 30 years ago. I go back to Superman the movie, which still to me is one of the greatest comic book movies ever made. But let's face it, the flying effects are a little creaky.
It hasn't
You know,
aged great.
it's. I mean, I like the film itself, and I would put up the first 30 minutes of that movie against any superhero film in terms of its the way it evokes emotion. You know, when Glenn Ford says, "I know you are here for a reason," you know, it's emotionally, and Scorsese comes from a different generation than Joe and Anthony Russo do, and Joe and Anthony Russo did what George Lucas did for science fiction with Star Wars. You know, Captain America, Winter Soldier, Civil War, Infinity War, and Endgame. You take those 4 films, if those are the only 4 films the Russo brothers ever make, they defined what's possible in an entire genre.
Yeah.
And you can never take that away from them.
I agree. Hey guys, thanks so much for watching this video. Make sure you like the video, leave a comment, and subscribe to our channel. And don't forget, we have a daily podcast called the John Campea Show podcast, available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcasting app of choice. Go and subscribe to it today so it'll be there when you need it.